So hello, everyone. My name is Bill Schloth, and I thank you for joining today. I wanted to get our presentation going. I wish at this point, I first of all want to send my best out to everyone. From a standpoint of today's goals, I want to introduce you to a four-step approach that helps organizations navigate the COVID-19 outbreak. Then I'd like to briefly touch on step one of that process, which involves the crisis impact assessment and short-term planning. I say briefly touch because most of you on the call, I know, are interested in the financing stimulus areas that the government has out there. So we're just going to touch on that step because it does feed into everything else that we want to move forward with the steps. Before I get started, though, I want to mention a lot of what we're going to go through in approaching the business also relates to your personal situation, how you manage the cash flow, and a number of other items. So always be thinking that as business owners. I think we have most, I saw it in our registration, mostly small businesses on the line, but there is a few nonprofits, so which is good. The approach I'm going to be discussing is taken in 90-day increments for a very specific purpose, because we are going to exit this and we want to consider that. So we're going to take that deeper dive into step two, which is identifying and executing on the available government provided stimulus programs. Let me introduce myself, Bill Schloth. I'm a CPA. I have an MBA in marketing, been helping small businesses through multinational corporations and nonprofits for over 25 years. I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly that come along with being a founder, investor, manager, having 4 children. They are spread out right now, sort of across the globe. So it is a concerning time, but we will get through it. I'm a co-founder and CEO of US Business Strong. US Business Strong is a nonprofit organization that was founded in 2015 with the purpose of providing no-cost group education, similar to this, private mentoring, custom research, and technology solutions that help businesses and nonprofits get started, grow, and achieve their goal. Before I jump into some of the details, we all need to stay positive. We are going to get through this. So I put this up there to sort of think through as we go through the presentations. The key to success is to focus on the goals, not the obstacles. Can't remember who said that, but I know I like the quote. I then want to start off with the famous, sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. With all the people we work with, I actually hate that word lose. I really want to believe we all should use these events as a way to learn. Now, what I'm talking about here, one of the co-sponsors, as you saw at the beginning of the presentation, is an entity called PEG Professionals, PEG 21 Professionals, which is a global resource that can provide people, process, and technology solutions to meet most of the support and growth challenges of an organization. The people involved with PEG 21 can take the form of C-level executives, subject matter experts, consultants, freelancers, and they now have even started an internship program. PEG 21 has agreed to provide its tools, guides, templates, free of charge to the attendees on this call. At the end of the presentation, we will leave contact information so that you can send along a request for that type material. PEG 21 Professionals has developed, because they have that expertise, specifically a 4-step process that involves a mix of people, process, and technology. They've packaged it into a program. There's a lot evolving, and as you'll see today, I'll try to bring you up to speed until an hour ago, but a lot is changing. We're going to use, I want to just discuss this program because you as a business owner, nonprofit manager, should be thinking about these few steps walking through this troubling times. First step involved in the process, we refer to this as the crisis impact analysis and a short-term plan development. The short-term I want to point to is 90-day increments. That's the way the system likes to look at it, because we all hope that we'll get through this in 90 days, we can be back up and running. Second step, identify and execute, as I said, on obtainable government stimulus. I stress the word obtainable because you want to be familiar, hopefully we'll help with this exercise, with the stimulus packages, but you have so much else going on that you need to watch you don't dive into something that might take up a lot of your time. They're offering a lot of stimulus, but I need you to think about that as you start analyzing which you might go after. The third step, as I said, 1 and 2, I'm going to primarily touch on today with a heavy emphasis on step 2. But the third step that PEG 21 has in their program is helping implement the plan. And even within the 90 days, things are changing weekly. So we need to keep current as best we can. You as business owners, it's not as easy. So hopefully there's a lot of good resources out there, plus there'll be some availability from our side. The fourth piece of this, everybody's feeling the pain of the situation, but we're going to all learn some serious lessons. And as we move on here, I hope you all, really just with putting something to paper, consider what lessons are being learned right now. And we're also trying to evolve plans that may be helpful for businesses, nonprofits to exit the crisis a bit quicker than they might have thought. This is all driven the economical side of it. The health side, taking care of yourself, is even more important than all of this, but we're addressing the economic impact of this situation right now. Crisis impact assessment and short-term plan development. I could talk about this for a while, but I'm going to try to move through it. This should be your first step. You can't dive in and grab the stimulus, even though the stimulus is being made available, and we'll get to that. But before you start getting into that area, we all know that cash is king, and area 1 is just that. Develop some type of cash flow budget for yourself, no matter how rough it may be. This is going to be the item that drives your success over the next 90 days, how much stimulus you need, and we'll go through a few of the items. Step 2 through the 5 that I'm going to do are going to impact what I want to call, I'm a CPA, so numbers come easier than others, but still simple cash flows. There is tools going to be made available to you. Want to get them on paper. The areas 2, which is customer managers for nonprofits, stuff like donor managers. Area 3 is your employees. Now, not all of you have employees, independent contractors, consultants. Stimulus packages have broadened so far that there's ability to leverage them to keep your contractors moving, even consultants. Area 4, I think you're going to get the point. Automation, we're all experiencing, and we're thrown into it. how to automate things to be able to move remotely. We've done surveys. A lot of people have done it. We've asked how difficult it's been. Obviously, there's some pains, but automation is something we're learning here, and you're going to want to take forward with you. The fifth area involves some of you, depending on your industry, but your supply chain management. Maybe something we never, or you never thought about as much because we didn't have the difficulties of getting there. One item before I move on, once we have this cash flow projection, once you have some financials, keeping those current, I can't stress more. That's why I always say the rolling 90 days. It can't be static, but getting started on something is gonna help you. Now, tools and resources. Boy, I give a lot of credit. Local resources, local agencies are popping up with all sorts of stuff. The government is trying. We are also gonna try in our own ways and give you access to various templates, tools, guides. Try not to overwhelm you, but that's where a potential session, just to have a private session to run through. So we have a number of tools ourselves, risk management area, priorities, company calendars. Personal cash flow, as I mentioned before, is critical during this process. Business challenge assessments, cybersecurity, the marketing that's going on presently, what you had to pivot, different tools. I think you're getting the point. Software, and one of my favorites, because of that CPA, is the budgeting tools. So a lot on there, a lot of tools out there. Hopefully we can filter through, and speaking with someone would probably be a good idea, or an email, and we'll get back to you on where you can find these, maybe some other resources. So PEG 21 professionals, again, number of people, different industries, has built 3 specific tools for working through this. Again, you will have access to it by sending an email to the final, or calling. But the 3 tools that fall in nicely to this is an impact assessment and planning tools. Questionnaire helps you review everything. Then it will end up with an evaluation with someone so that you can start sort of planning out the next steps. Understanding your finance and accounting readiness. There's that accounting side of me. Very important to the process, because when you see the stimulus programs that are offered, one of the key drivers is going to be a situational analysis. There's a lot of forms, but we're finding a situational analysis, well written. Projections are going to be asked for, but they have to be to us in a certain format that facilitates the review by the SBA, by the local bank that are now going to be providing payroll loans, so that the impact can be easily seen, but they're also going to look for how something could be paid. The third piece is actually an economic industry fast start questionnaire. I'm going to talk about the loans shortly. This questionnaire will allow the gathering of most of the information that would be needed to complete something that the SBA came out with that does start to simplify the initial submission. So that's a very good tool. I recommend you request it, you use it to help you, or if you need it to work with somebody. So let's get into the different obtainable disaster economic stimulus programs that are out there. We break those down into federal programs for organizations, both nonprofit and for-profit, state and local programs, public assistance for owners and individuals. I never want to take that off the table here. I do quite a bit of tax work as well, and they are trying to cover as much as they can on all fronts. I can't get to that all today, and that's pretty specific, but there is stimulus for the owners, us as individuals. Last piece, which I'm not going to talk to today, There is evolving private options in the market, but let's talk more about the publicly available stimulus. So here we go. Taking a deeper dive into the federal stimulus programs. Can't stress enough that this stuff is constantly changing, but at this point, we're starting to get the forms that are needed. And where I'm going to dive into, all of you may have searched Google, started seeing a lot of different things, but I'm going to use the titles that are specific to what you're going to want to go for. 4 items we have: the economic injury disaster loans, the economic injury disaster grants, the paycheck protection program that literally commences tomorrow. It is a huge stimulus opportunity. How it starts to roll out, that's going to be a question, but technically, when I get into that, you'll see it's supposed to kick off tomorrow. The last item I'll touch on in this area, without going too deep, is tax credits. There is the government trying to stimulate, maintain some cash flow management for you through certain exercises. So, what's the government? Let's just review quickly what the government stimulus process has been. We saw phase within the last month. It's incredible. I feel for all the small business organizations, individuals, families, but the government is, I think, doing as much as they can to try to throw at this. So phase 1 was the spending bill aimed at bolstering the response efforts to the outbreak, dealing with the outbreak. You then saw stage 2, which was emergency funding under the Family Act, which is primarily addressed at dealing with unemployment benefits, paid sick leave, benefits even to the point of obviously caregiving for children. The third phase, which was just signed last week, if that quick, is the CARES Act. And it's unprecedented in the history of the United States, $2 trillion aimed at lessening the impact of the economic situation here. Now, when we talk about that, breaking up the $2 trillion down into some of the pieces is roughly, they allocated $250 billion to expand the unemployment items and benefits, $100 billion to hospitals, $500 billion to corporations, and $377 billion to small businesses. And there's other individual benefits in there, but let's start real now digging into that $377 billion to see what we can help educate you on to get some of that. What else is the government doing? You're seeing on this chart, interest rates have been the lowest they've been in 5,000 years. I mentioned this also because on the personal level, I believe all of you, we do it along with the business, establish all your debt position that you're currently in, personal and business, and evaluate, take a look at that. There's might be plenty of room to renegotiate, help get some deferrals at both the personal and your business level. So hot off the presses is this Paycheck Protection Program. That's what you'll hear being called or see it, PPP. Provides small businesses and nonprofits. Please know that I'm using that term interchangeably here because for one of the first times ever, these SBA is including in these type of programs, the nonprofits. So what does it do? Its goal is to provide funds to pay up to 8 weeks of your payroll costs, including benefits. Now, important to note, the funds can also be used to pay interest on mortgages, rent, utilities. They want to keep you and your employees going. How much can you borrow under this? It's 2.5 times your average monthly payroll costs. The loan, frankly, a true stimulus attempt. I give it credit, and hopefully it flows as planned, but the loan is targeted to be fully forgiven if you comply with all the rules. And when I talk about fully forgiven, I want to make sure you understand there is a process, and you want to be on top of what aspects of being in compliance are needed to make sure you get the full recovery of what you expended there. For instance, your loan forgiveness can be reduced by things like this. I'm trying not to get too technical. Feel free to send us stuff, request. We can sit down and talk to you. Sorry, I wish we could sit down with you. But things like this will reduce your forgiveness if you decrease your full-time employee headcount, if you decrease salaries and wages by more than 25% for certain employees. Things like that you need to keep an eye on during this process, because your goal is to get this fully forgiven. I want to mention also, as we're here, that rehiring. That's what these processes are also meant to do. Go out and rehire your people. Now, I know all of you, I have a number of people, could be contractors, residential contracts, or others that even if they rehired, they may not be able to generate any new business because of the situation. But a lot of businesses, the goal is to provide this money to rehire, see how you can work. Now that relationship is until June 30th, 2020. You have to restore your full-time employment. And I want to mention salary levels for any changes made between February 15th and April 26th. How do you get the forgiveness? Again, let's get past the 8 weeks, but still I want to mention the forgiveness is going to be how you go through these loans is right now the process commencing tomorrow. Pretty much every SBA approved lender and federally insured credit union you can get in touch with and start the process. That is for businesses and nonprofits. On April 10th, the independent contractors, the sole proprietors, the people that are self-employed will also have access to these benefits. So those who have employees, I'm going to be frank and say that process, I'm sure, since no one's been through it yet, is going to be more simplified because you'll have your payroll records. The independent contractor getting help, self-employed, phenomenal that they're including it. But I'm not completely sure how they're going to balance what you pull down. It will involve things probably like the 1099s that you have issued, that you have received. The interest, let's talk about the loan. It is a loan. The interest is at 0.5%. The maturity of that particular first loan is 2 years. And at this juncture, they have already said it's going to be, the first 6 months are deferred. There's no personal guarantee. There's no borrower collateral look for or lender's fees. When to apply, as I just mentioned, April 3rd for small businesses and sole proprietors, April 10th for independent contractors, self-employed. As I mentioned, you apply through any existing SBA lender. There's, we don't have the URL in here, but it's quite easy to find. Pretty much any of the large, even smaller banks are SBA lenders, but you can easily find that out by going to the site. I don't have the site up here right now. Let me move now. That's the Paycheck Protection Loan. Now, the big one that has already started about 3 weeks ago was what's referred to as the economic industry disaster loans. That's part of the 377 billion. If I get offhand how much, but this is what was started. I say started about 2.5 weeks ago. I want to talk what the loan is, but I also want to talk the process just changed 3 days ago. And I give the SBA again credit. They tried to simplify the process of filing your first application, and you'll see why. So what is this type of loan? Direct loans from the SBA. Usually in the past, when you were getting an SBA loan, it was through a lending organization, one of the bigger banks or an approved one. So it took some time to process all the information through that system. These loans coming direct from the SBA, and they're up to $2 million. They are low interest bearing than any of the loans that the SBA has prior because they're disaster related. And those interest rates are 3.75% for businesses, 2.75% for nonprofits. Important, flexible repayment terms, even as long as 30 years. Announced about a few days ago, I'm starting to lose track. They are now deferring even the first 12 months payments under this loan. Important point, because this is why I believe they simplified the starting process of the loan, but it's something that's out there, should be pursued, and it's part of the application. We'll talk about that in a minute, but it's an economic injury loan. It says advance here. It's a grant for up to $10,000 that is not repayable. No need under any circumstances. We will discuss, though, don't want to get everybody too excited, how much they might get of that. No one really knows the calculation related behind how they're going to decide on the 10,000 or lower. Important for some business owners is the credit score related to this. I use the word temperature check because they are not relying, as they did in the past at certain levels, too much on credit. However, I like to point out, when I say reliance on credit, they are truly looking for some real troubled situations, whether that be back child care support, IRS related issues, but they will not decline a loan for lack of collateral, as I'm putting down here. I wanted to just go back a bit to that credit score. They are not relying, again, higher credit scores are great, but if there's some low, please do not let that distract you or question you for filing for an application, because they have lowered the thresholds. Point under this, loans under $25,000 under the EIDL program do not require any capital. SBA, as I said, no matter how big you get, after that, they start looking for some assets, anything you have. You'll be filling out a personal financials. Now, when I say looking for assets, they will not decline if they don't find assets. What I mean by assets, it could be the real estate. They will look for pledges on anything over that. I will, again, point out the important thing here. These loans are able to be subordinate to any other borrowings you have, okay, to an extent, but any other bank loans, they're going to subordinate. I'm just mentioning that you will not be rejected because you don't have enough capital. In the past, most lending organizations, if not all of them, including the SBA, needed some collateral. If you don't have it because it is encumbered already, they will understand that. They may subordinate behind that. If you have other assets that are out there, they may make it part of, obviously, the lending documents. Here's the page now. Prior to Monday, this page was completely different. And I give them credit. The process we've been through a number of times. You can write down the URL, but we've been through prior to this. This is the starting process. And if you file, a few points to make. If you filed your application prior to this, which was a much more involved start, you have to refile through this portal. The timelines behind, we'll get more into that. But I want to mention this point is on the application, that will scare you a little bit, so I'll go back. On the application, both the prior one, which was longer, a lot of documents to get your loan number that you submitted something. There is no loan amount on the applications when you first submit. I stress that because if you can only guess how that's going to be determined, a lot of it has to do with what I talked about earlier, how strong, understandable your situational narrative, your financial projections show what has happened and what you need, because they don't have anything else. So they haven't even asked for the loan amount. I now want to talk about, you go, okay, what have they said? And I'm sure they're doing their best. What have they said about turnaround? Turnaround dates that have been discussed are, you file your application, you'll hear something back in 20 to 25 days. You'll then potentially get the funding if it was approved within the next 5, be a 30-day window. I've been working, again, 30 years on overage in this lending area, both the SBA side, the private side, with the short amount of information that they asked for in this start of this process. We are going to get additional questions. And that's where the process starts to move on. So I recommend you make your best crack at putting the application in, even to immediately getting some of the documents to them that I discussed before. I throw this at you. We're not going to go through the line items. This was literally the prior submission portal. And it asks for, I highlighted some of the red items, talking about full schedules of the tax returns, the IRS forms, schedule of liabilities, year-to-date profit and loss statements, some monthly sales figures, a schedule of liabilities. I only point these out because, and personal financials. I point all this out because to approve a loan probably over the $25,000. I don't know if they're just going to set a threshold for just getting an initial thing, but most of the people on this phone are probably looking for more than the 25,000. So they were going to ask for more information, and you want to be ready to supply it as fast as possible. Technically, you're supposed to supply it within 7 days of submission. We hit 2 of them so far. Here we're now down to what I referred to before as the economic injury disaster grants. These are those, you're going to ask for them. It's a button now right at the end of the application. It says, do you want to apply? Maximum 10 grand. Grant does not have to be repaid. How to request it? It goes along with the other application for your bigger loan. And the targeted funded, it's saying they asked you to include your wire instructions is the 5 days. I just want to emphasize that in your cash flow projections that you're going to promise me you're going to do, don't bank on anything until you start getting some indications of what's coming. I don't want people to think they're trying, but that you're going to get this stuff as quick as you may want it. Federal stimulus tax credits I touched on before. I'm going to now flow through this because I see a few questions coming through, which is really cool. And that was my goal here, to try to get deeper, but I wanted to cover the basics. So I'll try to get through now. These type of items are more driven to help you. They're not lending operations, but they're tax credits and cash flow assistance that should be considered, or have someone you know help you consider it. Employee retention credits for employees subject to closure experiencing hardship. Good benefit. It ties to people that have been had to because of the situation closed down. There's now the rule out there. I just share it with you. There's a delay in payment of employer payroll taxes. It's not all the taxes. It's not the employer side, few other things, but it's most of your payroll taxes are now deferred until through the end of 2020, with all the 2020 deferral amount due in equal installments, one at the end of 21 and the other at the end of 22. Another powerful cash flow item that keeps money here at your business, and that was their goal. However, let me point out, now this continues to evolve. Both of these are not available for employees that received assistance through the paycheck program we had previously discussed. Local stimulus, state, please, we're trying to do our best. We have a number of people and they're throughout the country, but we have a lot of requests. We're trying to even keep our eye out on the state and local stimulus programs. Please send us an email so we know where you might be, because everybody's trying. Connecticut Department of Labor, I'm located in Fairfield, Connecticut. Connecticut Shared Work Program is one of those such benefit. It allows employees to reduce employees' hours by up to 80%, while stepping the DOL, the Department of Labor, steps in to provide unemployment insurance to help offset the lost wages. Powerful tool. Everybody's trying to help with that type of cash flow. You don't want to lose employees, but they step in beyond the reduction. Really cool. And it was more local organizations. We'll talk about the names that were missing. There were two great Connecticut operations that came out with a Connecticut Recovery Bridge Loan Program. It was announced on March 26, 2020. And it included it was 30 million, I believe, when it was announced, worth of availability. The loans are really the goal was to get 3 months of operating expenses to people, but it was a maxing out at 75%, 75,000 if you can demonstrate the cash flow needs. The interest rate was 0. Same was, because I'll explain that in a minute. The interest rate is 0. It's a 12-month balloon payment at the end of the 12 months. However, a 6-month extension can be made. And remember, any of these loans, you might be familiar, can be paid, God bless, when we get through this, sooner than they're due or whenever you're ready, without prepayment fees. Here's my point. Connecticut, we knew it came. We knew it was coming, actually. It came out and announced on the next day. I think it came out at 12 p.m. lunchtime on the 26th. At 6 p.m., the DECD, which is a state organization, support organization, had to stop accepting applications. They received, as this said, this was the news announcement, over 4,000 applications since the program went operational yesterday morning. They have tried to add staff with their partner, Connecticut Innovations, another great operation trying to do what they can. They doubled the funding in the program. 4,000 applications, they had to close it down. My point in mentioning this is I don't know of any go-to source that watches all the states. When we get involved with people, of course, we're going to try to keep our eye. We know more about Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, getting to know Pennsylvania, but that's because that's our hub area. It's just we want to try to keep you abreast because they are beneficial programs, but they could come and go. I believe this is going to have to maybe reopen because the application was super simple. I use that word super simple because you could literally get the application done in about under 20 minutes. However, this goes back to what I was saying before. You need to realize that there's other stuff coming. So once the application was submitted, I'm going to go through this quickly, but you'll see it's an example of even what a state loan is looking for to get this process. They want to get a process for you, but the quicker and the more complete you get the information. So this is what came out right after you sent the email: projected financial plan, budget, 2019 income statement, internal financials year to date. We're at March, 3-month projected cash flow, a write-up on the adverse COVID situation, a credit report, applicant structure, ownership, personal financials, good standing. I would ask for that same stuff. Obviously give a loan. You have to be protected. You got to prove that you can get it. I pointed out here because this is the state. The federal government, unless I'm missing something, will also be asking for a lot of this information just to get clear that you can pay back. But you got to be ready for this. I'm getting to the end, and then we'll take some of these process. My goal is to get this done within the hour, and I think I'm going to be able to. Whoop, this one's a really good question. Crisis tip. I just want to go back to what I said at the beginning. This exercise should be done to both your business and yourself. How are you going to get through this cash flow wise? You may have to fund the business, painful thing, but this stimulus hopefully is a method for you to get that burden somewhat off your back. But personally, you have to get through it. So keep an eye out for things that can help that. I just bring up something that just came through in Connecticut. The governor of Connecticut has made agreements with over 50 credit unions and banks in Connecticut. I looked at the list. It's not going to say it's everybody, but it's all the people, banks that, and most of them that really do a lot of the lending. So I give them credit again. And this program, I don't have the part that goes down. I just wanted to point out this program has numerous benefits, including the ability to defer mortgages for up to 90 days. Make this point. It's another item to try to keep current on while you're managing your business. We're trying to develop something that is searching the different states to try to keep up to date, but it's evolving. I just mentioned that. Outside of the scope of stuff today, which I know a little bit more, I'm a little bit more dangerous than the average person because of the tax background, but there's a lot of stimulus that's being thrown at that you may not see, that you will have to watch, that will come into play as you file your tax returns. There's the refund checks you've heard about. I'm just touching on a few of these. You really should know the unemployment benefits if you ended up in a certain situation. They have done what they can to keep some, even the states. You're getting your pay and maybe a little bit more, but I don't want to go too far here. It's unemployment benefits. They have made it easier to get. They've made it bigger than you used to. Retirement account distributions, I throw it out there with hopefully my goal is to confuse anybody, but what they did there, cash flow, is they no longer are requiring you to, for the older generation, requiring you to take out your minimum distributions. You can take out now up to $100,000 without the usual 10% bonus penalty you'd be at. I don't want to go too deep here. It's more for a tax professional that would sit down with you, but there's definitely tax benefits that they're throwing at this. Bring up something near and dear to a lot of people's hearts, the student loan area. That is out there. The CARES Act requires the Secretary of Education to defer loan payments, principal and interest, for 6 months through September 30th, 20, without a penalty for borrower. The law also included certain benefits to employers that are helping borrowers, and excuse me, and included a $14.25 billion allocation to educational institutions to help some of the relief with the college units responding to the virus, including grants to students to cover basic needs. These I don't have the time to go through, and want to be careful how much I get through it right here, but I want to point out there's all avenues here you got to keep in mind while keeping focused, obviously, on your core business, which that's what we want to get through. So I appreciate you listening. That was 50 minutes, not too bad. I want to point out a few things. Here's a number to call. This is PEG 21 Professionals number, and an email to send to if you would like. Just send something, mention that you were on the webinar, you would like access to a tool, some of those tools, or probably best even to just have a short mentoring session with someone to walk you through the tools. Feel free, my contact information is on the bottom. And what I want to do quickly, I will not take this over 60 minutes. Just give me a moment here. I only heard certain entities are eligible. Oh, okay, I don't believe it I mentioned. There certain, question was, sir, are there certain entities that are eligible for the PPP, Payroll Protection Program? The answer there is basically this. Businesses and nonprofits with under 500 employees. Incredible for me to be able to say the individuals who operate small businesses or as independent contractors and self-employed individuals are also able to pursue that. So I want you to keep in mind. There's a quick one. I own a franchise of a big company. That's a good question. Franchises are being, under this affiliation rules, franchises are allowed to apply, and they're not going to fall into this affiliation rule that might push them over 500. So franchises can apply. Now, near and dear to my heart, can I get started can I get stimulus as a startup? We only incorporated late 2019. Congratulations on getting your stuff. It's unfortunately you ran into this situation, but the answer there is yes. As long as your operation was in existence prior to January 31st, 2020, when the crisis was announced, you're able to go after these stimulus programs. No, this is affiliation rules. Can I get more than one Payroll Protection Program loan? The answer there is no, and I recommend how that's going to be controlled is simply through your EIN number, or if you're self-employed, your Social Security number. And I want to back up a little bit if I hadn't discussed this. So we had the SBA come out 3 weeks ago with their program. We have a Payroll Protection Act. It just came out, kicking off tomorrow. I want to point out here that you can't apply for reimbursement. Now that these are all starting to come together, you can't apply for reimbursement in two places under two loans. So the payroll, I mentioned this because think through the process. If you had already applied for your SBA loan, you might have included all your payroll that you wanted to cover. Now you want to get that covered really by the Payroll Protection Program. And I say that because if we think through it, the Payroll Protection Program, you're going to get refunded if you comply with the regulations. You can apply for all of these. Just remember, now that they keep adding them, we can't request the same information. Oh, this one, can I get faster money through the PP? How do I deal with that? Oh, see, as I said before, if you filed for a SBA loan under the old system or already put your application in under the new system, and now you're filing for a payroll protection loan, which is going to drive you, if you qualify, money faster, I'd recommend you go back and speak with anyone you have been about processing or that's helping you, and go back and make sure that message gets through for your application. so that you can recast some of the forecasts. Because if you do qualify under the payroll protection, it behooves you, because of the ability of forgiveness, to acquire the money there rather than through as an SBA emergency disaster type loan. I'm just about done. I'll just take one more. Nonprofit. I'm a nonprofit. My nonprofit is not a 501c3. A 501c3, if you don't know, is a designation formally given by the IRS and tax exemption. But this question asks, are they still eligible? Because you can also be a nonprofit that hasn't gone through the full process of getting your 501c3 exemption. The answer there is yes, but I couch it with the fact you are going to be able to have to show sufficient evidence of the state you're operating in, that you're in good standing with them, but that the revenue producing efforts of yours are truly nonprofit. So the answer is yes. You're just going to have to make sure you show, and again, that will be through your tax returns and your mission statement, and if you have a website, but you filed in some state and you just haven't gone to the 501c3. So I do appreciate your time. I've left the information up there for quite a while. Geez, just one came in and I want to answer. It's a good one. Can I get stimulus loans if I have a private or bank loan already? Good question. These disaster loans, as I said before, do subordinate to other loans. If you have an SBA loan, interesting point, if you have an SBA loan already, I would definitely revisit that entity. You'll need to talk to them, first of all, about what you're doing. They're not going to get in the way at all. But if you have, I believe there's going to be a lot of room for discussion on, hey, can we roll this up? Similar comment I talked about before, revisiting other debt you may have personally or as part of the business to see if there's some relief, renegotiation, part of the process. Listen, I appreciate your time for listening, and I hope you have send us some information and have appreciated the education. I wish you all the best, you and the family during this time. We will get through it, and thank you very much.